Station 7 Gamma sat on a barren moon at the edge of human space. It was a small place, the kind of place people forgot about. 143 people lived there. Miners dug for rare metals in the frozen ground. Scientists studied rock samples. Families made homes in the metal hallways. Children played in the recreation room after school. Commander ran the station. She was 62 years old with gray hair and tired eyes. She had served in the Terran Defense Fleet for 30 years before taking this quiet post. She thought she would finish her career here in peace. She was wrong. It was a Tuesday when the ships appeared. Sergeant Aaron Cole was in the security office when the alarm went off. He jumped from his chair and ran to the command center. On the main screen, he saw them. 15 alien warships hung in the black sky above the moon. They were vessels. Cole recognized their shape from his training, long and sharp like knives. Their hulls were dark purple, almost black. Commander stood at her console. Her face showed no fear, but her hands were shaking. "Open a channel," she said. "All frequencies." The communication officer nodded. "Channel open, Commander." Took a deep breath. "Vessels, this is Commander of Station 7 Gamma. This is a civilian mining facility. We have families here. Children, we mean you no harm. Please identify yourselves and state your purpose." Silence. She tried again. "Vessels, please respond. We can discuss whatever concerns you have. There is no need for hostility." More silence. On the lead ship, Fleet Commander watched the human station on his screen. He was tall with scales the color of dried blood and 4 eyes that never blinked. He had destroyed 12 alien outposts in his career. This would be his 13th. His second officer turned to him. "The humans are attempting communication, Commander." Did not look away from the screen. "Let them talk, it changes nothing." "Should we respond?" "Why, they are insects. Do you speak to insects before you crush them?" The second officer hesitated. "The High Council wants this moon for its mineral resources. Perhaps we could simply remove the humans without." "Without what?" 4 eyes finally turned to his officer. "Without killing them. These creatures have spread across this region like a disease. They are weak. They are soft. The Dominion must show them their place. Today we teach them a lesson they will never forget." He raised one clawed hand. "All ships, begin bombardment." On station, the first blast hit the eastern dome. The explosion threw people off their feet. Alarms screamed through every hallway. Red emergency lights flashed on and off. Commander grabbed her console to stay standing. "Shields, get the shields up." "Shields at full power," someone shouted. "But Commander, they won't hold long against this firepower." Another blast, then another. The station shook like a toy in an angry child's hand. Ceiling panels fell. Pipes burst. Somewhere a woman screamed. Sergeant Cole ran through the hallways. He had 12 Marines under his command, 12 people against 15 warships. He knew they could not win, but they could save lives. "Everyone to the underground bunkers," he shouted into his radio. "All personnel move to the bunkers now. This is not a drill." He grabbed a crying child who had fallen in the hallway. The boy was maybe 7 years old. Cole carried him under one arm and kept running. "Mommy," the boy screamed. "I want my mommy." "We'll find her, kid. I promise, just hold on." The shields held for 11 minutes. 11 minutes of fire and thunder and terror. Then they failed. The next blast tore through the main dome like paper. Air rushed out into space. Emergency doors slammed shut, but not fast enough. 23 people died in that moment. They were pulled into the cold darkness, their screams cut short by the vacuum. Doctor was in his laboratory when the ceiling collapsed. He was a geologist, 54 years old, with a wife and daughter back on Earth. He had found something special in the rocks here, something that could change everything. Now he lay under a pile of metal, unable to move, watching his blood spread across the floor. "Someone," he whispered, "please, someone help." No one came. Commander stayed at her post. She watched her station die around her. She watched her people die. There was nothing she could do. "Get to the bunkers," she told her remaining crew. "All of you go." "Commander, come with us." "I said go," her voice broke. "That's an order." She stayed. She watched the screens until they went dark. She listened to the explosions until they stopped. Then there was only silence. The attack lasted 47 minutes. When it was over, Station 7 Gamma was a ruin. Broken metal and shattered glass floated in the space above the moon. Bodies drifted among the debris. A child's toy, a small stuffed bear, spun slowly in the darkness, forever reaching for an owner who would never come. In the underground bunkers, 46 survivors huddled together. Sergeant Cole sat against a wall, still holding the boy he had saved. The child had found his mother. She held him tight, tears running down her face. Cole looked at the people around him. Wounded, scared, broken, he thought about the others, the 97 who did not make it. 14 of them were children. He thought about Commander. She had not made it to the bunkers. With shaking hands, Cole activated the emergency beacon. The signal was weak, but it would reach Earth eventually. Along with the signal, he sent the footage from his helmet camera. Everything. The attack, the deaths, all of it. "This is Sergeant Aaron Cole of Station 7 Gamma," he said into the recorder. His voice was rough. "We have been attacked by forces. 97 dead, 46 survivors. We need help. Please, someone, anyone." He stopped recording and let his head fall back against the wall. Around him, people cried softly. Someone prayed. A child asked why the bad aliens had hurt them. Cole had no answer. Far above, Fleet Commander looked at the destruction one last time. He felt satisfaction. The humans had learned their place. They would not dare to settle in territory again. He turned to his communication officer. "Send a message to the High Council. Report successful purification of the human infestation. The moon is ours." "Yes, Commander, it will be done." Allowed himself a rare smile. This had been a good day, a simple operation, no complications. The humans had not even fought back. He did not know that he had just made the worst mistake in the history of his species. He did not know that the signal from those bunkers would cross the stars and reach Earth. He did not know that every human who saw that footage, the bodies, the children, the stuffed bear floating in space, would feel something ancient wake up inside them. Something angry. They had wanted to teach humanity a lesson. Instead, they had started a war they could not imagine, and humanity would be the ones doing the teaching. The signal from station took 3 days to reach Earth. It arrived on a Friday morning. By Friday evening, the entire planet was burning with rage. Admiral Helena Frost was in her office at United Terran Command when her assistant brought her the report. She was a tall woman with silver hair cut short and eyes the color of winter ice. People said she had no emotions. They were wrong. She simply kept them locked away, deep inside, where they could not affect her judgment. She watched the footage from Sergeant Cole's helmet camera. She watched it 3 times. Her face showed nothing, but her hands, hidden under her desk, were clenched so tight that her nails drew blood from her palms. 97 dead, 14 children. A stuffed bear floating in space. She closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, they were harder than before. "Get me the Premier," she said, "now." Premier Daniel was the leader of the United Earth Council. He was a kind man, a diplomat who believed in peace. When he saw the footage, he wept. He was not ashamed of his tears. A leader who could not cry for dead children was no leader at all. "How did this happen?" he asked. "We had no warning." "No warning," Admiral Frost confirmed. They gave no demands, no threats, no communication of any kind. They simply arrived and started killing. Why? What did they want? "The moon has valuable minerals. They wanted it. We were in the way." Sat in silence for a long moment. 97 people. They killed 97 people for rocks. Yes, sir. Children, Helena, they killed children. Yes, sir. The premier stood and walked to his window. Outside, the city of Geneva spread beneath him, millions of people living their lives, safe, protected. They trusted their government to keep them safe. They trusted that monsters could not simply appear from the sky and murder their families. The footage has leaked, his assistant said quietly. It's everywhere. Every news network, every social media platform. People are very angry, sir. That was an understatement. Across Earth and every human colony, people watched the footage from station. They saw the attack. They saw the bodies. They saw that small stuffed bear spinning alone in the darkness. And something broke inside them. Something that had been sleeping since the early days of human history woke up. Within hours, recruitment centers were overwhelmed. People lined up around the block to join the military. Factory workers volunteered for extra shifts to build weapons. Scientists offered their skills for military research. Old veterans called their former commanders, asking to return to service. The message was clear: humanity would not accept this. On the other side of the galaxy, the Dominion received very different news. High Sovereign Hose sat on his throne in the great palace of Prime. He was ancient, over 400 years old, with scales that had faded to pale gray. He had ruled the Dominion for 2 centuries. He had conquered 11 species. He feared nothing. The operation was successful, High Sovereign, his advisor reported. The human presence has been removed from the moon. Fleet Commander awaits your praise. Hose waved a dismissive hand. Give him a medal or something. It was a minor matter. What of the humans? Have they responded? They have mobilized their military, High Sovereign. For a moment Hose was silent. Then he laughed. It was a dry, rattling sound like bones clicking together. Mobilized, the humans. What will they do? Send us an angry letter. The advisor shifted uncomfortably. Our intelligence suggests they are assembling a fleet. Let them. The humans are soft. They write poetry about peace. They make art instead of weapons. They cry over their dead instead of seeking revenge. They are not warriors. They do not have the stomach for war. From the shadows, a female stepped forward. Ambassador had spent years in neutral space, observing other species, including humans. High Sovereign, if I may speak. Hose looked at her with mild annoyance. What is it? The humans are not like the other species we have conquered. They are different. Different how? Chose her words carefully. They form strong bonds with each other, bonds that go beyond logic. When one of them is hurt, others feel the pain. When one of them dies, others carry the memory forever. They call it love. They call it loyalty. And when these bonds are broken by violence, they become dangerous. Hose laughed again. Look at them, Ambassador. They are small, weak. They have no natural weapons, no claws, no scales. What could they possibly do to us? They build weapons, High Sovereign. They build very good weapons, and they do not forget, ever. The High Sovereign dismissed her with a wave. Your time among the lesser species has made you fearful, Ambassador. The humans will protest. They will demand justice. They will make noise. And then they will do nothing because they are soft. He could not have been more wrong. Back on Earth, the United Earth Council met in emergency session. The great chamber was full. Every representative from every nation and colony was present. The air was thick with tension. Premier stood before them. You have all seen the footage. You all know what happened. The question before us is simple. What do we do? Admiral Frost stepped forward. A holographic display appeared behind her, showing maps, ship positions, and strategic data. The Dominion is an expansionist empire. They have conquered 11 species in the last 3 centuries. They see other races as inferior. They take what they want and destroy anyone who resists. What happened at Station was not an accident or a mistake. It was deliberate. It was calculated. And if we do nothing, it will happen again. A representative stood, What are you suggesting, Admiral? Frost's eyes swept across the chamber. I am suggesting that we invoke Article 7 of the United Earth Charter, Total Retaliation Doctrine. We show the, and every other species watching, what happens when you attack humanity. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Article 7 had never been used. It authorized the full military might of humanity for offensive operations. It meant war. How many ships? Another representative asked. All of them, Frost replied. Every combat-capable vessel we have, nearly 3,000 ships. And the target? Frost's face remained cold, but something burned in her eyes. The system. Their seat of power. We will not chase them through the galaxy system by system. We will go straight to their heart and rip it out. The chamber erupted in debate. Some called for diplomacy. Others demanded blood. For 3 hours they argued. In the end, the vote was unanimous. Premier signed the order himself. His hand was steady, his heart was not. May God forgive us for what we are about to do, he said quietly. Admiral Frost saluted. With respect, sir, I don't think God will have any complaints. She turned and walked out of the chamber. She had work to do. Across human space, the message went out. Ships that had been scattered across 100 systems began to move. Engines that had been cold for years roared to life. Crews reported to their stations. Weapons were loaded. Coordinates were set. 2,847 ships, the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. Battleships the size of cities. Carriers filled with fighters. Destroyers, cruisers, support vessels. All of them moving toward a single point. All of them carrying the same message. You killed our people. You killed our children. Now we are coming. And when they found there would be no diplomacy, no negotiations, no mercy. Only justice. The human fleet moved through space like a river of steel and fire. Nearly 3,000 ships stretching across millions of kilometers. Their engines glowed blue-white in the darkness. Their weapons were ready. Their crews were determined. At the head of the fleet flew the dreadnought Unconquered. She was 2 kilometers long, bristling with weapons, carrying a crew of 8,000. Her commander was Captain, a veteran of 30 years with a face like carved stone and eyes that had seen too much death. He stood on the bridge, watching the stars slide past. Behind him, his crew worked in focused silence. They all knew where they were going. They all knew why. Lieutenant sat at the tactical station. She was young, only 28, with dark hair and darker eyes. 3 weeks ago, she had been a promising officer with a bright future. Then she had received news that changed everything. Her sister had been on station. Her sister and her sister's husband and their 2 children. Gone, all of them. Had watched the footage from Sergeant Cole's helmet camera. She had seen the stuffed bear floating in space. It looked exactly like the one she had given her niece for her birthday. Now she sat at her station, checking weapons systems for the 100th time. Her hands did not shake. Her voice did not break. But something cold and hard had settled in her chest. Something that would not rest until they answered for what they had done. Captain noticed her focus. He walked over and placed a hand on her shoulder. You okay, Lieutenant? Looked up at him. I will be, sir, when this is over. Nodded, he understood. Half his crew had lost someone at station, a friend, a family member, a lover. They had thought they were attacking a forgotten outpost. Instead, they had created 2,000 ships full of people with personal reasons to hate them. In the middle of the fleet, Admiral Frost commanded from her flagship, the carrier Resolution. She spent her days studying tactics, looking for weaknesses. She spent her nights staring at a photograph on her desk. Her goddaughter had been a scientist on station, a brilliant young woman named who had sent her funny messages and called her Auntie Helena. Was one of the 97. Frost told no one. She kept her grief locked away like everything else. But when the time came, she would make sure they paid for every single life they had taken. The fleet's journey would take 3 weeks. 3 weeks to cross the vast emptiness between human space and territory. 3 weeks for the galaxy to watch and wonder. Observer watched from his ship in neutral space. He was a species known for recording history. He had documented wars and empires for 200 years. He had never seen anything like this. There were scholars, not warriors. They survived by staying neutral, by recording events without taking sides, but even felt something stir inside him as he watched the human fleet pass. He recorded his observations in his journal, as he had done countless times before. Day 15 of the human mobilization. Their fleet now numbers 2,847 vessels. This is unprecedented. I have observed dozens of species respond to attacks on their outposts. The usual response is diplomatic protest, perhaps a small retaliatory strike. No one has ever assembled a fleet of this size for a single incident. He paused, thinking about the right words. Other species mourn their dead and move on. They calculate the cost of war against the cost of peace. They make practical decisions. The humans do not seem to be making calculations. They do not seem to care about cost. They have left their borders weakened, their colonies vulnerable. They have risked everything for this mission, not for territory, not for resources, for revenge. He looked out his window at the passing ships. I begin to understand why Ambassador warned her people. The humans are not being practical. They are being human, and that is far more dangerous. The fleet entered space without asking permission. They simply sent a message: we are passing through. Do not interfere. The government was outraged. They called emergency meetings. They drafted protests. And then they did nothing, because even they could see the look in human eyes, the look of people who had nothing left to lose. Fleet Commander received reports of the human fleet's approach. At first, he was amused. Then, as the reports continued, he became confused. How many ships? He asked his intelligence officer. Nearly 3,000, Commander. It is the largest human fleet ever recorded. 4 eyes blinked in sequence. That is impossible. Their entire navy is perhaps 4,000 vessels. They would never commit so many to a single offensive. The intelligence is confirmed, Commander. They are coming here, all of them. For the first time in his career, felt a small seed of doubt plant itself in his stomach. He had destroyed a forgotten outpost on a worthless moon, a minor action. Why were the humans treating it like the end of the world? He pushed the doubt away. Numbers did not matter. There were superior warriors. They had better ships, better weapons, better training. The humans would break against them like waves against rocks. He sent a message to the High Sovereign requesting additional forces, just to be safe. On day 18, the human fleet encountered its first opposition. 200 warships waited at the border, arranged in perfect formation. Their commander, a veteran named, had been given simple orders: stop the humans or die trying. Admiral Frost received the report on her bridge. She studied the enemy formation for a long moment. They're trying to block our path, Captain said over the comm link. Yes, Frost agreed. They still don't understand. They think this is a normal war. They think we'll negotiate, compromise, turn back when we see strength. She turned to her tactical officer. Signal the fleet, attack formation. No surrender accepted, no mercy given. The battle of the border lasted 4 hours. They fought well. They were experienced warriors with good ships and solid tactics. Under normal circumstances, they might have held. But these were not normal circumstances. Human ships attacked with a ferocity that shocked the commanders. Damaged vessels did not retreat. They accelerated toward the enemy, firing until their last moment. Crews whose ships were dying chose to ram enemy vessels rather than escape in life pods. Fighter pilots flew into suicide missions without hesitation. Lieutenant led a squadron against a cruiser. When her fighter was hit, she kept flying. When her weapons failed, she aimed her broken ship at the cruiser's bridge and ejected at the last second. Her fighter struck the enemy vessel and destroyed it. She was rescued 3 hours later, floating alone in the darkness. Her first words were, "How many did we get?" When the battle ended, not a single ship remained. 200 enemy vessels destroyed to the last. Human losses were 31 ships. Admiral Frost surveyed the aftermath. Debris and bodies floated through space. The price of justice. She opened a fleet-wide channel. "All ships, this is Admiral Frost. Today we showed the what happens when you murder our people, but this was only the beginning. There awaits, and when we arrive we will teach them a lesson that will echo through history. Continue forward for station, for our dead, for humanity." 2,816 ships continued their journey. Commander's last message reached Prime 3 days later. It was a recording of his final moments, his ship burning around him, human vessels closing in from all sides. "They do not stop," he said, his voice filled with something the rarely experienced, fear. "They do not negotiate, they do not retreat, they just keep coming. High Sovereign, I do not know what we awakened, but I fear it will be the end of us all." The message cut to static. High Sovereign Hose listened to it alone in his throne room. For the first time in 200 years, he felt the cold touch of doubt. Ambassador's words echoed in his mind. "They do not forget, ever." He ordered a full mobilization of the fleet. 5,000 ships to defend the home system. Surely that would be enough. Surely the humans would see reason when faced with such overwhelming force. But deep in his ancient heart, he was no longer certain. 2 days later, the human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the system. 2,816 ships, their weapons hot, their crews ready. They had arrived. And hell came with them. The system had 3 inhabited worlds. Prime was the heart of the Dominion, home to 12 billion. 2 smaller colonies orbited the outer planets. Massive space stations circled each world. Shipyards churned out warships. Defense platforms bristled with weapons. It was the most heavily defended system in the Dominion. It was not enough. High Sovereign Hose stood in his war room, surrounded by holographic displays. 5,000 warships hung in formation between the human fleet and his, the largest defensive force in history. "They are outnumbered nearly 2 to 1, his war minister said confidently. "They cannot break through." Hose stared at the display. Something was wrong. The humans had traveled across the galaxy, lost ships in battle, and kept coming. They had ignored diplomatic channels. They had refused all communication. This was not how rational beings behaved. "Open a channel," he ordered, "all frequencies." His image appeared on every screen in the human fleet. An ancient, scales gray with age, eyes burning with cold fire. "Humans," he said, "I am High Sovereign Hose of the Dominion. You have come far, you have fought bravely, but this is where your journey ends. Before you stands the might of our empire. 5,000 warships. You cannot win. Turn back now and we will allow you to retreat in peace. Continue forward and you will be destroyed. The choice is yours." He waited for a response. Admiral Frost sat on the bridge of the Resolution, watching the High Sovereign's message. Around her, her crew waited in tense silence. Through the enemy fleet filled the stars. So many ships, so many guns pointed at them. She thought about Station, about the 97 dead, about her goddaughter who had loved poetry and laughed too loud and dreamed of discovering new worlds. She opened her own channel. "High Sovereign Hose, I am Admiral Helena Frost of the United Terran Fleet. 3 weeks ago, your forces attacked a civilian outpost. They killed 97 people, miners, scientists, families." Her voice was cold as space itself. 14 of them were children. She stood up from her chair. "You asked for our response. Here it is. We did not come to negotiate. We did not come to accept your surrender. We came to show you and everyone else in this galaxy what happens when you murder human children. Your fleet is in our way. It will not be there for long." She cut the channel and turned to her communications officer. "Signal all ships, attack formation Alpha, target priority, enemy command vessels first, then carriers, then everything else." She paused. "And tell them to remember station." The battle began. Two fleets collided in the darkness between stars. Nearly 8,000 ships firing everything they had. Space itself seemed to burn with weapons fire. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers. Ships died by the dozens, then by the hundreds. They had numbers, they had experience, they had the advantage of defending their home. The humans had rage. Captain brought the Unconquered into the heart of the enemy formation. His ship was taking heavy damage. Fires burned on 3 decks. 2 of his main guns were destroyed, but he kept fighting. "Helm, bring us alongside that carrier," he ordered. "All port weapons fire at will." The Unconquered turned, her remaining guns blazing. The carrier's shields flickered and died. Explosions tore through its hull. It broke apart, spilling bodies and debris into space. "Target destroyed," Lieutenant reported. "New contacts approaching, 4 cruisers bearing 315. Target the lead ship, fire when ready." Across the battle, similar scenes played out. Human ships fought with a fury they had never encountered. Damaged vessels did not retreat. They pushed forward, closing the distance, making their deaths count. Crews fought until their ships came apart around them. A human destroyer, engines dead and hull breached, drifted toward a battleship. The captain laughed. The humans were helpless, drifting wreckage. Then the destroyer's reactor overloaded. The explosion destroyed both ships. The destroyer's captain had ordered the overload himself. His last words were, "See you in hell." Fleet Commander commanded the defense from his flagship, the Dominion's Pride. He watched the battle with growing horror. His ships were dying, not just losing, dying. The humans were not fighting like any enemy he had faced before. They were fighting like they had nothing to lose. "What is wrong with them?" he whispered. "Why don't they retreat?" His second officer had no answer. A human cruiser broke through the line and headed straight for the Pride. Its shields were failing. Its hull was burning. It should have been trying to escape. Instead, it accelerated. "They're going to ram us," someone screamed. Ordered evasive action, too late. The human cruiser struck the Pride amidships. The impact tore through 3 decks. Fire spread through the ship. Systems failed. The lights went out. Lay on the deck, wounded, his purple blood pooling beneath him. Around him, his bridge crew was dead or dying. Through a crack in the hull, he could see the battle still raging. He had started this. He had attacked station. He had killed those humans, those children, and thought nothing of it. He had expected them to be weak, to accept their loss and move on. He had been so wrong. With his last breath, he managed one word: impossible. Then he was gone. 12 hours into the battle, the fleet began to break. Ships that had held formation for centuries scattered in panic. Some tried to surrender. The humans ignored their signals and kept firing. Some tried to flee. Human ships hunted them down. By hour 18, it was over. Of the 5,000 warships that had defended their home system, fewer than 300 remained. They fled into deep space, broken and defeated. Human losses were heavy, nearly 1,000 ships destroyed, tens of thousands dead, but the survivors reformed their formation and continued forward. Toward Prime. High Sovereign Hose watched from his palace as the human fleet approached his world. The orbital defense platforms opened fire. The humans destroyed them one by one. The shipyards fought back. The humans reduced them to rubble. Every military installation, every weapon system, every defensive structure, the humans eliminated them all. But they did not fire on the cities. Hose did not understand. The humans had come for revenge. Why were they not destroying everything? Why were they not burning his world to ash? Admiral Frost answered his unspoken question. Her voice came through every speaker on Prime. People of the Dominion, we did not come to destroy you. We came to punish those responsible for the murder of our people. Your military is gone. Your defenses are gone. Your ability to wage war is gone. But your cities stand. Your people live. We are not monsters. We are not like you. She paused. Your leaders chose this path. Your High Sovereign ordered the attack that killed our children. Now he will face justice. Surrender him to us and this ends. Protect him and we will stay here in orbit above your world until you change your minds. On Prime, the people looked up at the sky. They could see the human ships, dark shapes against the stars. They could see the debris of their fleet falling like burning rain. They could see that everything they had believed about humans was wrong. They were not soft. They were not weak. They were not insects to be crushed. They were terrifying. Within hours, riots erupted across the planet. People who had cheered the attack on station now demanded their High Sovereign's head. Guards who had sworn to protect him melted away. Advisors who had praised his wisdom abandoned him. Hose sat alone in his throne room, listening to the chaos outside. 400 years of rule ended in a single day. 11 conquered species, but he could not conquer these strange, fierce creatures from a distant star. Ambassador had tried to warn him. He had not listened. The doors burst open. His own people dragged him from his throne. They carried him to the spaceport where a shuttle waited. They threw him inside and sent him up toward the human fleet. Toward judgment. Admiral Frost watched the shuttle approach. Beside her, Captain and Lieutenant stood in silence. What will we do with him? Asked. Frost's eyes were cold. He will stand trial on Earth, in front of the families of everyone who died at station, and then he will answer for his crimes. The shuttle docked. Guards brought the ancient to the bridge. He looked small now, stripped of his power, just an old creature who had made a terrible mistake. He looked at Frost. You have destroyed us. No, she replied. You destroyed yourselves the moment you attacked our people. We simply finished what you started. She turned away from him. Take him to the brig. We're going home. Outside, the human fleet began its long journey back to Earth. Behind them, the system lay in ruins. Not the cities, not the people, but everything else. Their military was gone. Their power was gone. Their pride was gone. They had wanted to teach humanity a lesson. Instead, they had learned one. The war was over, but its echoes would last forever. High Sovereign Hose stood trial on Earth, in a great hall filled with thousands of people. The families of station sat in the front rows. They watched as evidence was presented. Video footage, survivor testimony, communications records showing that Hose had approved the attack personally. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Hose said little in his defense. What could he say? He had ordered the deaths of civilians. He had called them insects. He had expected no consequences. The verdict was unanimous, guilty of crimes against humanity. Hose was executed on a gray morning, 1 year after the attack on station. His last words were a warning to his people. Do not make the same mistake I made. Do not underestimate the humans. But the humans were not finished. The peace treaty with the new government was harsh. Admiral Frost had recommended the terms herself. They would pay reparations to every family who had lost someone at station. They would surrender 40% of their territory to human administration. They would reduce their military to a defensive force only, never again capable of offensive operations. And they would hand over every officer who had participated in the attack for trial and punishment. Some called the terms too severe. They said humanity should show mercy. They said the war was over and it was time to heal. Premier understood their concerns, but he also understood something else. If we show weakness now, he told the United Earth Council, other species will think they can attack us without consequence. They were not the only expansionist empire in this galaxy. Others are watching. They need to see what happens when you harm human civilians. They need to understand that there is no attack too small to ignore, no outpost too remote to avenge. Our people must be safe everywhere. And the only way to ensure that is to make the cost of attacking us so high that no one will ever try. The treaty was signed. They accepted every term. They had no choice. Across the galaxy, other species took notice. Observer completed his historical account of the war. He called it the Human Doctrine. It became the most widely read document in known space. Every species, from the youngest colonies to the oldest empires, studied it. The key passage was quoted in diplomatic meetings, military academies, and government chambers across 1,000 worlds. Other empires expand through conquest and expect submission. They calculate the cost of war against the benefits of peace. They make rational decisions based on resources and territory. The humans are different. They do not seek expansion. They do not desire conquest. They ask only to be left alone to live their lives in peace among the stars. But if you harm them, if you harm their families, their children, they will not calculate. They will not negotiate. They will cross the galaxy itself to find you. They will sacrifice everything to make you pay, not for territory, not for resources, for something they call justice. The learned this lesson. The galaxy should remember it. Added his own observation at the end. I have studied 100 species. I have watched empires rise and fall. I have seen wars fought for every reason imaginable, but I have never seen anything like the humans. They are capable of great kindness, great creativity, great love. They write poetry and paint pictures and dream of better worlds. And yet, when threatened, they become something else entirely, something ancient and terrible. They killed 97 humans and lost their entire empire. The mathematics of this should concern everyone. The book spread through every corner of known space. Species that had never heard of humans suddenly knew their name and their reputation. On a distant world, a delegation of military advisors approached a rising empire called the Collective. They were expanding rapidly, conquering weaker species, building a vast domain. Their leaders were considering their next target, a small human colony on the edge of explored space. The advisors brought a copy of his book. "Read this," they said. "Read it carefully, and then decide if that colony is worth what it will cost you." The leaders read. They studied the footage from station. They examined the battle records from. They saw what remained of the Dominion, a broken empire, stripped of power, surviving only because the humans had allowed it. They abandoned their plans. The human colony was never threatened. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. Species that had considered humanity easy prey suddenly changed their minds. Empires that had planned expansion into human territory found other directions to grow. Hostile powers that had dismissed Earth as weak and unimportant began treating human ambassadors with careful respect. The humans had not conquered anyone. They had not built an empire. They had simply shown the galaxy what would happen to anyone who harmed their people. It was enough. On Earth, life slowly returned to normal. The fleet came home to heroes' welcomes. Soldiers who had fought were honored with medals and parades. The names of those who died were carved into monuments that would stand for centuries. Admiral Helena Frost retired quietly. She refused all honors, all ceremonies, all requests for interviews. She disappeared to a small house by the ocean, where she spent her days walking on the beach and watching the waves. Some nights she dreamed of her goddaughter's smile, her laugh, the silly messages she used to send. In those dreams was still alive, still happy, still full of hope for the future. Then Frost would wake up and remember, and sit in the darkness until dawn. She had done what needed to be done. She had brought justice to those who deserved it, but justice did not bring back the dead. Nothing could do that. Captain returned to active duty. He was promoted to admiral and given command of humanity's fleet. He spent his career making sure that nothing like Station ever happened again. He succeeded. Under his watch, not a single human outpost was attacked. Lieutenant left the military. She had done what she needed to do. She had avenged her sister and her niece and her nephew, but the rage that had driven her was gone, burned away by battle. In its place was only emptiness. She traveled to Station. It had been rebuilt, larger and stronger than before. They called it Station now, in honor of the commander who had died at her post. New miners dug in the frozen ground. New scientists studied rock samples. New families made homes in the metal hallways. Visited the memorial. A wall of names, 97 of them etched in stone. She found her sister's name. She touched it with trembling fingers. "I'm sorry I couldn't save you," she whispered, "but I made them pay. I made them all pay." She stood there for a long time. Sergeant Aaron Cole was there too. He had stayed on the station after the attack, helping to rebuild. He had nowhere else to go. The people here were his people now, bound together by shared tragedy. He recognized from the news. He walked over and stood beside her. "You lost someone," he said. "It was not a question." "My sister, her family." Cole nodded. "I'm sorry. I tried to save everyone. I tried so hard. But there were too many and I was too slow and—" His voice broke. Looked at him. This man had survived the attack. He had sent the signal that reached Earth. He had carried a child through burning hallways while the world fell apart around him. "You saved 46 people," she said. "You gave us the proof we needed to bring justice. Without you, none of this would have happened." Cole was silent for a moment. Then he asked, "Did it help, the justice, the revenge? Did it make the pain go away?" Considered the question. "No," she admitted. "The pain is still there. It will always be there. But now I know that my sister didn't die for nothing. I know that the ones who killed her paid for what they did. And I know that because of what we did, other families won't have to feel what I feel." She looked at the names on the wall. "That has to be enough, because it's all we have." They stood together in silence, two strangers united by loss, looking at the names of the dead. Above them, through the dome, the stars burned cold and bright. Somewhere out there, the galaxy watched and remembered. They remembered what humanity had done. They remembered the price they had paid. And they learned to be afraid. Not of human weapons, not of human ships, but of something deeper, something that lived in the human heart, a loyalty that logic, a love that demanded vengeance, a fury that crossed stars and shattered empires. The humans had sent a message to the universe. We are not to be touched. We are not to be tested. We are not to be underestimated. Harm our people, and we will find you. Hurt our children, and we will end you. This is the human doctrine. Remember it.